Tonight, we take a look inside the way that Twitter chooses who to treat poorly and who to treat with open arms, especially when it comes to allowing media companies access to its advertising model. We should mention at the outset, for the sake of pure transparency, as we always like to do, that RT is among the outlets. We are among the outlets that Twitter chooses to generally ban from its advertising. But trust me, we are not alone. Here's a look at Twitter's true methodology tonight. We decided we were going to drill down for you. Here is news with Rick Sanchez correspondent Michelle Greenstein.
Twitter says that its singular mission is to serve the public conversation. And now, in accordance with that mission, it says it'll be blocking state-run news media entities from advertising on its site. The affected accounts will still be able to use Twitter, but just won't be able to access its advertising services. Yet Twitter says this policy won't apply to taxpayer-funded entities, including independent public broadcasters. Which begs the question, which news outlets will be affected? Well, the answer to that question may be found in another question. Who is Twitter working with to determine whether or not an outlet is controlled by the state? By its own admission via press release, Twitter will be working with an NGO called Freedom House, which is funded in part by the National Endowment for Democracy. Freedom House promoted pro-CIA propaganda in the 80s and to this day has a weird habit of finding human rights abuses only in governments for which the U.S. national security state would like to execute regime change. But perhaps this new Twitter policy isn't such a break from the company's behavior in the past. For one thing, Twitter has already banned this network, RT, and Sputnik from advertising on its platform. It also removed over 1,000 accounts that were in support of the Venezuelan government earlier this year. And late last year, it removed over 10,000 accounts for engaging in attempts to share disinformation in an automated fashion. Now, disinformation definitely sounds bad. But is the determination of whether or not something is deemed disinformation being made by an objective party? Well, it looks like, again, the answer may be no. Twitter is currently in a partnership with the Atlantic Council, which is funded by, among others, the U.S. State Department. And a Twitter spokesperson says that the company has open lines of communication with the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security, Freedom House, the National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council, these are all entities that have a bias. Not to mention the fact that Twitter has been accused of steering traffic away from progressive anti-war websites. So when Twitter says its mission is to serve the public conversation, some may say, well, great, but for whom? For the News with Rick Sanchez, Michelle Greenstein, RT.
And we've asked Michelle to join us now to discuss this a little bit further. Here's what's interesting about this. Some would make the argument, well, hey, tough luck, world. Twitter is an American company, so they're going to go by American standards and be essentially an arm of the American state.
Or you could even take it in the other direction, say, hey, Twitter is a private company. There's no First Amendment rights situation going on here. They could do whatever they want. They can censor whoever they want.
But that's a teaching. Isn't that amazing, right? What we're discussing right now, which makes us then ask the question that maybe this is going to be the question in the future as we globalize the world and these corporations become so big. Is Twitter's responsibility to the world and the truth or to the U.S.'s truth?
Right. I mean, I'm going to shy away from saying what should or shouldn't be, right? But let's talk about these organizations that have a say in what is or isn't disinformation. The Atlantic Council is a think tank with board of directors that are former CIA, former FBI, former Pentagon, funded by weapons contractors, oil companies. Historically, these entities are pro-war. The other thing is that Freedom House, funded by the State Department itself, and also the National Endowment for Democracy, which I think warrants a little bit of scrutiny. So let's talk about it, because even though it claims to be a non-governmental organization, a significant portion of its funding does come from the U.S. government, and it claims to focus on democracy promotion. But let's talk about what democracy promotion actually is, because actually one of the chief architects of the National Endowment for Democracy says that they do what the CIA used to do. So the National Endowment for Democracy was basically created when the CIA was coming under a lot of scrutiny. It was being investigated by both houses of Congress, and this allows the state to do what it used to do without that stigma and scrutiny that comes with the name of the CIA, which is, you know, destabilize foreign governments, usually by funding its opposition.
This is an important conversation, and it's a great story to continue to cover, because this is not something that's going to end, by the way, with one conversation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan, let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Huawei, Huawei, Huawei. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Keep? Can you believe that? Watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.